Today we're going to be looking at the Mean Reversion Grid Expert Advisor. So this one makes our job pretty easy. We don't have to guess what kind of strategy it's trading. Obviously it's a grid and is trading a mean reversion style system. This video is sponsored by our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Take your trading to the next level through automating the London breakout and the opening range breakout. Click the link in the description to download the EA completely for free. But what's interesting about this one is that it's not using a martingale, it's using a fixed lot size. So this can give you a lot more safety relative to your traditional martingale because you don't have that same massive scaling. However, because it's only trading the odd cat on the H1, I'm a bit nervous that it's been heavily over-optimized just because of how these backtests generally look. So let's kind of go through the settings here to see if we can uncover what the strategy behind it really is. And here it's saying that realistically it's trading a grid, and he's saying that it's using AI. I'd be a bit skeptical about that, particularly at this price point and the fact that there's no description of how to use an API key or the model being used. It could just be more of a marketing. As known, it trades OddCAD, 24/5 operation, and supposedly it's relatively easy to use. And what he's saying is that effectively it does not use martingale and it closes positions based on signals, stop loss, or take profit. What we can see here so far is there's just two backtests. We're not seeing any sort of live signal. The comments so far look decent. It's this looks like an AI photo, so we don't really quite know. But yeah, so far it's pretty decent looking. Let's go now and actually run a backtest because we don't have a ton of information from that. Here you guys can see I ran it on the OddCAD on the H1 time frame, and he said you should run it on the H1, but it's adaptable. And what we can see is that the backtest looks really, really, really good. Clearly it is a grid, so I think it is doing what he says it's doing. We're seeing a lot of trades being executed. It's also, at least under these settings, not a martingale because you can see the volume is fixed, so it's not massively scaling the lot size, and it's keeping it nice and fixed. Under inputs, you can also see like progressive lot coefficient, fixed lots set 0 or progressive. You're able to essentially set a max number of positions too. So a lot of this comes down to the risk management features behind it. The most important thing here is max position number. You're not allowing it to open more than 5 positions in a row. And why this is pretty interesting is that it's preventing the total risk from becoming excessive. And this is pretty key because if it was allowed to open, let's say 10 positions, 20 positions, then all of a sudden you can get into quite a bit of trouble. So the fact that he's not really scaling the lot size, progressive lot coefficient might enable you to scale, but it's so small it wouldn't really scale logically. At the same time though, because he's also capping the number of total positions open, you're actually keeping it relatively reasonable from a risk perspective. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I guess this would be a max grid where only 5 are allowed to open, but clearly we can see it stopped opening past a certain point. And this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no. This is one grid that closed. So I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it closes here. So this would have actually been a loss. But it's not a huge loss because he's only running microgrids. And I guess that's why we're also seeing that there's occasionally losses here, because this is what happens when you hit the max number of orders, so 5, and it stops. So this is actually really cool because it's not taking on an excessive amount of risk, because even under the worst case scenario, you're only going to be, with these settings, opening 5 micro lots. So it's not a crazy amount of risk. The one thing to note though is it looks so good, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fair amount of over-optimization going on here. Just because like you don't usually get a backtest which is this good unless you're using some sort of kind of crazy manipulation. I guess also like the return over drawdown is massive, but if you were to make the return significantly higher, your drawdown would be higher, but it's still really, really good. Like let's say we were to 10x the risk to 710. This would give us a 67% rate of return, I believe, and our drawdown would still be 2% or 2.7%. So that's still incredibly, incredibly low. So that's the only thing that's kind of being a bit fishy to me. The strategy is really cool. Like really, really cool. The fact that he's able to get theoretically good performance while keeping your risk manageable by only using fixed lots and by using grids with a max amount of levels, super cool. However, will this performance actually look like this if you run it live? That's my reasoning. Because if anybody else could get this kind of performance without using excessive risk, why aren't other people doing it? Why isn't Bogdan doing this? Why isn't Valerie doing this? If you're able to get this performance while capping your risk so heavily, why don't people do it? So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a heavy amount of over-optimization going on, and that's why we're seeing this. So really cool bot, really cool strategy, but the fact that there's no live signal and the backtest looks too good to be true is getting my alarm bells going off. In terms of the actual signal, clearly mean reversion, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it's entering with an RSI and then it starts the grid, classic grid system where it's opening at a certain amount of levels, but overall nothing too crazy in terms of more the entries. The exits, I believe they do vary based on, they might not be fixed points. Sometimes they're shorter and sometimes they're further away. So perhaps he's using some sort of ATR based stop. But let's go and run ourselves a visual back test to see more real quick. And we can see that there's no indicators, but it's opening up many grids. So yeah, perhaps it's a fixed point, perhaps it's more of an ATR that's hard-coded or something based on regional volatility. But overall, really cool. Let's see if it actually works live. That's my big takeaway. So let's wait for a signal, and if anybody buys this bot, has a good experience with it or a bad experience, let me know in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.